investigators recovered ammunition. Homicide detectives are continuing their probe. National Transformation Alliance leader and former police commissioner Gary Griffith says the December 7th protests highlight years of public frustration, not just opposition to the Salaries Review Commission report or the government's 4% wage offer to public servants. Griffith, in a Facebook post, criticized poor governance, disrespect towards unions, and what he called biased decision-making. He called for trade unions to have a permanent role in governance and stressed the need for unity among political parties, unions, and NGOs to address systemic inequities. The protests led by the Joint Trade Union Movement include a march to the Prime Minister's residence to deliver a list of demands urging the government to revisit its decisions. The family of 25-year-old murder victim Antonio Russian Manik Chand marked the first anniversary of his death with a prayer service on November 28th. Manik Chand was brutally beaten with an iron bar outside a Barrackpore bar last year, succumbing to his injuries days later. The suspect, known to the family, remains at large. His grieving mother, Kasi Manik Chand, is urging anyone with information to contact the police, saying justice is inevitable. Police investigations are ongoing. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi Macnish. Thanks for watching.
WESN.
Holiday season, bring the magic of Christmas home with WESN's Joy of Christmas. Relive timeless classics from the laughter to the heartwarming moments that make the season unforgettable.
Hey, light the lamp, not the rat, light the lamp, not the rat!
Santa's coming to town! Santa! Oh my God!
Oh, poor baby.
Experience the joy of WESN special productions, crafted to bring you new stories and cherished memories. This year, let WESN bring the joy of Christmas to your home.
Merry Christmas, Charlie Brown!
Catch the spirit, catch the joy.
Anchors away. May the force be with you.
Only on WESN, your content capital.
He was the greediest man alive.
It's Ebenezer Scrooge.
Until the night he met someone extraordinary.
Hello.
The Muppet Christmas Carol.
I'll drink to Mr. Scrooge, even though he is odious, stingy, and badly dressed.
Humbug.
Oh, there goes Mr. Humbug. There goes Mr. Grin.
Do you think it's safe for us to be up here?
They gave a prize for being mean. The winner would be him.
Yes, Mr. Cratchit.
If you please, Mr. Scrooge, the bookkeeping staff would like to have an extra shovel full of coal for the fire.
Our assets are frozen!
How would the bookkeepers like to be suddenly
Unemployed!
Heat wave! Oi! This is my island in the sun.
It's Charles Dickens' classic tale, as only the Muppets can tell it.
It's good to be heckling again. It's good to be doing anything again.
Filled with holiday warmth.
Hey, light the lamp, not the rat, light the lamp, not the rat!
And Christmas spirit.
Jacob Marley?
Oh, that's scary stuff. Hey, should we be worried about the kids in the audience?
No, it's all right. This is culture.
This is the movie to see, to share, to cherish with someone you love.
Thank you for making me a part of this.
Walt Disney Pictures presents, from Jim Henson Productions, The Muppet Christmas Carol.
God bless us, everyone.
Whatever.
WESN.
Tis the season to be merry, with pastels, sorrel, puncha creme, ham, maybe turkey, and of course with all of the food and drink and all of the other delicacies that you may have to offer in your own household for your guests, for your friends as they pass through, for family. It will come with a lot of close proximity, handshaking, hugging, and potentially germs passing. It's one thing to consider. There's a report in one of the daily newspapers warning about viruses going around. Now, there's a couple of things that I would like to just highlight here. One of the things, of course, is you might want to pay attention to your personal hygiene especially as you are interacting on a close and personal level with a lot more people. Right? Generally speaking, most of us are within the next couple of weeks. And I think it's something about Christmas when it's not just that, yeah, every now and then throughout the year you might, have a party, have a gathering, be in close proximity to people, do a lot of handshaking, do a lot of hugging and kissing and what have you. But now is a time when practically the whole country is doing it. So if ever there was a time for anything to spread, it would be now. Then, of course, there's the travel. Some people are going away, coming back before Christmas travel, during Christmas travel, family coming in for Christmas travel, whether they come in advance or closer to Christmas Day. And we knew this before COVID-19, but COVID-19 kind of pointed it out even more. Things could spread at an airport. Soap and water goes a long way, even better than hand sanitizers. But there's also the whole Christmas rush and needing to observe proper, healthy lifestyle choices just to ensure our immune system could keep up. Proper rest, maybe taking a vitamin C pill, ensuring that we have our meals on time and we eat enough, maybe potentially not eating too many of the wrong things. And then in the report, Dr. Tiloxin points out something that is a bit of a bugbear, particularly in TNT. Viruses don't need antibiotics. Antibiotics work on bacterial infections. A doctor might prescribe it to help deal with a secondary infection. I'm not a doctor. I wouldn't know how to get into those things. But the point is a doctor might prescribe it. Just because you think you have a virus, there's a lot of long-term implications about that. Don't want to get into that now. Just hope people could be a bit cautious while still enjoying yourselves. Yeah, we are about crime, but we have to worry about our personal health too. Speaking about things we have to worry about, including to some extent personal health or personal nuisances, 'tis the season to be jolly. So of course you're going to hear all of the local Christmas songs and foreign Christmas songs to a lesser extent on radios throughout neighborhoods across the country, especially on Christmas Day. Now, sometimes it's understandable, but then, of course, there are times when things get obnoxious. We had stakeholders with regards to noise pollution on maybe a month or two ago, and I wanted to highlight one more thing. When the whole subject about fireworks legislation and Christmas and New Year's are coming up, so there are concerns, of course, with fireworks safety. TTPS spoke about that during Diwali, but also noise pollution coming from that. The whole test results and the awarding of open scholarships brought one family story about how far it went with regards to the impact of noise pollution for them. And something that I want to highlight before we get into the more detailed stories. a family, including the father, who lived in his home area for 45 years in Penal Rock Road, had to move to San Fernando just because of the noise pollution at a bar. And this is someone who has been heralded as bringing running water to his community, but the noise pollution he couldn't do anything about. And he realized the impact it was having on his children, and he thought that his daughter had a chance for success. So, reportedly, he moved just for that. 5 years ago, they moved to San Fernando, and now his eldest daughter has an open scholarship. They worked hard. They needed an environment to allow that to happen, so they had to move. Father had to move from his traditional home. Now, the question is, why should he have had to do it? I don't fault him, obviously. On a practical level, you can't wait for society to change when you have an immediate concern now, so you have to make a decision. Are you willing to fix it yourself? The problem is, the entire country cannot fix noise pollution for itself, because the theory is you have to find somewhere to move to. And at some point, places that are not necessarily plagued by noise pollution problems, which hopefully will not be plagued by other problems, those places will start to run dry. Unfortunately, we do not have laws that require bars to be all out in the wilderness, isolated from suburban areas. It's easy, and to some extent in Port of Spain, where a lot of the bars are clustered around more and more commercially centered districts. But just look at Woodbrook and how many people probably still live there. To some extent, the nightlife and the bars and the loud music is part of the reason that's pushing families out of the Woodbrook area. Of course, there are other considerations. But this whole family had to uproot their lives and move, and that's not always easy, not always available to some people, and it comes with a lot of risks. How easy it is for you to just move house. And then, of course, you have to have faith that it's worth it. And for this family, I think it is. And during the Christmas season now, maybe we should consider not adding to the problem. There's already enough people who have to worry about bars and the like, creating noise pollution, causing it to be difficult for them to just get a good night's sleep. Let's not add to that, despite the fact that we may be tempted to want to enjoy the festivities into the wee hours of the morning. Not everybody wants to have to listen to other people's festivities in the wee hours of the morning. With that said, it's now time to switch gears. Let's go straight to today's Daily Review. I guess this is the big story. I don't even have a count as to how many articles are in today's daily newspapers about this. There were some yesterday. The Tobago Autonomy bills were debated in the House yesterday. One passed by a simple majority. One needed a special majority. Did not pass. It was the government yes, the opposition no. And not necessarily surprising. But the way how this all went down makes me think, who really is acting in good faith over this issue? I'm not sure. I'm not sure because the funny part about it is, and to be fair to parliamentarians and elected political officials, I have been in situations outside of politics where we don't have divisions like that, where everybody agrees that we need to do something or fix something, and there is a specific goal, not necessarily specific details on how to get there, but a specific goal in the collective minds of a group of people, and yet, even when everyone agrees that something should be done, nothing can get done. So this, to some extent, could be basic human nature playing out. At the end of the day, elected officials are human beings just like us. However, the responsibility, the scale, the duty of care required, it's not an apples to apples comparison. I am speaking about something that, while important to the people involved and to stakeholders, it's not going to change the price of bread with regards to what I've experienced in life. Major legislation to change how Tobago runs its affairs, for better or worse, will impact things like the price of bread. So the scale of responsibility is a lot higher. And this is one of the things where you want to elect people who understand that, because common human failings at the level of nation leadership isn't really acceptable. It shouldn't be. Now, to some extent, as we try to figure out our way in the world, you know, we try to figure out the standards. Before, things used to be very straightforward, not always fair. We have problems in your personal life, that's legal, but, you know, we frown upon it. We might not vote for you because we don't trust your character. And on some hands, it's foolishness because your personal life is your personal life. But on the other hand, if it is that you have too many common human failings and you can't rise above, it's kind of hard to say that you should be the leader of the people, the example to all, to set the tone, to show us the way to the promised land. How does that work? So first of all, it's the timing of the situation. That's what the articles that I didn't get to yesterday. The timing of the autonomy debate. The last time we heard about this, it was the THA elections. And then in between then and now, there were the local government elections. So of course, Tobago autonomy, not really involved in local government elections, right? Tobago is not really involved. They have the THA, they have their own thing. So we had local government reform, kind of replace Tobago autonomy as the big thing that we campaign on. Notice a pattern, because we had the THA elections and then, you know, they had Tobago autonomy bills, and then we didn't really hear from it again. And then we had local government elections, so we had local government reform, and they brought us the property tax. They brought us that part of the equation. But they didn't bring us the local government reform, that kind of, we haven't really heard anything about that. And now we're back to the national stage where the 2 Tobago seats might be very important, and timing is very interesting. Hey, autonomy. Let's bring that issue back. You know, we could have spoken about it in like 2023, early 2024, you know, maybe even 2022, but nah. We need to line up the timing so that we could take advantage of whatever we could take advantage of. That's what it seems like. This question of timing came from the Chief Secretary. Chief Secretary is asking, why rush the debate on autonomy? In part, I think because basically they found out that yesterday they were going to have the debate, but they found out about that, I don't think, too far in advance. But then also, there were, I mean, the Chief Sec brought it himself. We see these bills when an election is coming. Now, one of the interesting things is, I'm not entirely sure if he's happy on what was presented by the government or not. Right? So he said it was placed in the order paper on Thursday to be debated Monday. Why? But the thing is, he has concerns about it, about what was being offered, about if it was reflecting what the Tobago people wanted. But then he also has concerns about the debate itself and its passing. More on that in a bit. Meanwhile, in advance, one of the UNC dissidents warned the government, because in his mind, MP Dinesh Rambali was thinking, does the government think we will go against the opposition and support them on this? Because we're the dissidents. We have to show our dissidence and our dissonance. And he pointed out to the fact that they need more, in the opinion of the opposition, there needs to be further consultations on the Tobago autonomy bills, except once upon a time when we did have the now Deputy Chief Sec, Dr. Faith B. Israel, on the program. She said for the most part, one of the issues with this matter is there's been too many consultations that have gone nowhere. To what extent are more consultations needed? Now, on one hand, one of the inconvenient truths might be that I don't know how effective the consultations were, but as things progress, there might actually need to be more consultations just once it's concise and efficient and not time wasting. But on the other hand, I see her point. Because it seems as though the opposition may not be even fully aware about the practical matters of the issue at hand. And they're just looking for a way to stymie the government. Because again, this is where it gets confusing and it's hard to know who's acting in good faith. Because the Chief Secretary is complaining about what is being presented for autonomy. So then the opposition is saying, well, we need more consultations because Tobago is complaining. But then the TPP or members of the administration of THA are saying, we've had too much consultations already, no more consultations. So, of course, now the question is it that we're just going to have to take it on face value, what representatives of Tobago say on the matter? Because technically speaking, the THA is the executive chosen by the people of Tobago. But did that mandate also include that the TPP, formerly members of the PDP, will essentially be the sole representation, and their allies, supporters, etc., will be the main representation or sole representation of what Tobago says autonomy is? Do they have that mandate? Maybe they do. At what? I think it's 13-2 now. 14-1 at the time. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. Maybe the mandate was to run the THA as it is right now, and autonomy in the minds of some Tobagonians could be a separate thing that needs its own referendum or what have you. But of course now, that's the setup. We go into Parliament and it becomes interesting. So, another member of the opposition brought up some of the same issues, I guess you could say, right? MP Saddam Hussein was basically calling out some of the amendments, or one of the amendments in the Tobago legislation, and how it was different from the original. The quote is, this clearly shows a discrepancy with respect to the definition of what Tobago is, right? Pointing to the amendment being 11 nautical miles from Trinidad, but the bill did not have that, although to some extent from what we understand the government countered saying, well, the Tobagonians said they wanted the nautical waters of the island defined as 11 miles from 6 miles, so we've increased the nautical border. And essentially, Saddam Hussein was complaining that this is not necessarily what the Tobagonians want, except the Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, is saying these aren't new amendments from government. These suggestions came from the Tobago House of Assembly as their recommendation. Hence, what I just said about the nautical situation. So, now the government is accusing the opposition and the THA executive of delaying tactics. Prime Minister said he was shocked. I'm not entirely sure why he was shocked, though, to be honest, that the MP for Barataria Salmon could so cavalierly intervene in the parliamentary proceedings to play this game. I mean, the opposition basically has not supported almost everything that you've put forward. So, I understand that you want to be outraged, so you need to have a stance and find a phrase or a line to express your outrage while showing body language and emotion that you are outraged. How dare you do this and deny this from the Tobago people? Except when you say you're shocked, I'm like, haven't you been in Parliament before? You are the Prime Minister. What is so shocking about it? That's like saying you're shocked when a murderer murders. That's like saying you're shocked when a businessman is concerned about profit. That's like saying you're shocked when financiers are corrupt. I mean, so to some extent, the government is claiming, hey, we just have a bill and we don't have the opposition support and this is the best we could do with a simple majority, and we included recommendations from the THA themselves, the executive, from Farley. But the opposition seems to be pretty stiff or stubborn on their position. And of course now, we have to ask the question, you know, is it that they're looking at the THA and trying to give what they think Tobago wants? Or are they just opposing it for opposing's sake? Is this an election gimmick by the PNM? And what does the TPP-led THA executive really want? And this is one thing that I'm quite confused of. Now, of course, the Tobago PNM, they're basically saying, you know, this is a bad thing. Kelvin Morris said it's a stain on Tobago's quest for autonomy. That's a little too much hyperbole for me there. I think similarly, Ansel Dennis also had a criticized UNC's role of the bill's failure, criticized the Chase Chief Sec for undermining the process with jokey amendments, although some of the amendments, like changing the wording of the members in order to allow not just elected, but also appointed councillors, I believe, to serve in certain roles. You're getting a lot of hyperbole and a lot of, oh, it's a sad day and at this day, and to some extent, we kind of knew how this would play out, right? But what is it that the THA wants? Well, all right. Martin George, he cut straight to the point. And I'm wondering if this might be the most sincere, truest take out of all. He was not surprised by the outcome. Somehow he's the only one not surprised. And he's not even in Parliament. And he's not even in a political party. And yet Martin George is the only one not surprised. Describing the autonomy efforts as a political charade. Accusing politicians of using the issue as a political football while failing to achieve anything meaningful. The regular charade of these bills being brought forth and the shenanigans which accompany them. It's been played out once again in the national parliament, and too often appears that political leaders use this as a political football, and they have. Meanwhile, ex-PNM member Soifat Angus criticized Augustine's approach. She's cautioning that some of these amendments are basically giving too much power to the Executive Council and Cabinet, ignoring the needs of the people on the ground. Too much power is too centralized. And it makes me wonder, to what extent would this also be translated? Because I don't know, this is an autonomy bill, but remember the local government model is going to be based on maybe the current THA model. To what extent, I mean, what's good for one should be good for all. To some extent, the status of Tobago, and now let's go with the Chief Secretary. And what is it that he wants? Because I'm not entirely sure. One of the conundrums for me is when he says that he wants Tobago to have equal status to Trinidad, I understand why he wants that. To say that Tobago has a lesser status, it's not right to do so. The problem is to say that Tobago is of equal status, I don't think it's proper to say so. In terms of population size, it's not equal to Trinidad. So you can't, to say that they're equal, and this is the problem, to say that they're equal, you need to further define what that means, right? Because equal might mean what? You need the same budget as Trinidad? Because on one hand, you want equal status, but then you want a federal system, which I will assume would give more provisions for local legislative authority in Tobago, and then a national federal service that will oversee certain things that has to be done on the nation level, right? We're not going to have a Tobago Defense Force and a Trinidad Defense Force and a Tobago Coast Guard. Although to some extent, with regards to crime, that might be more practical, but I'll leave that alone. So what does it mean to have equal status? Because a lot of it, I think, of what irks Tobagonians has nothing to do necessarily with legislation and more to do with regards to perception as well as just how Trinidadians treat Tobago, which I would argue sometimes could be horrible, sometimes is not. Tobago is seen in many ways by many people all at the same time. And I think one of the things Tobagonians need to understand is when there are Trinis that disrespect you, chances are they disrespect everybody else in Trinidad. It's not a Tobago issue. It is a those people are just disrespectful issue. But he has come out and decried this whole thing, and he's used language that I'll be honest, if I thought the PNM Tobago Council and the Prime Minister kind of was a little bit too dramatic with their language, I am left very uncomfortable with what the Chief Secretary had to say. Now, first of all, he's lamenting about the bill's failure. Then he's lamenting things weren't included that they requested to be included in the bill. Is this the bill you wanted and it failed? Or is the bill not sufficient enough, which is why the opposition went against it? So maybe it's a good thing that it failed. He hasn't necessarily spelled out if he wants incremental change or if he wants to kind of settle this if we apparently have the opportunity when there's no actual opposition on this issue. There's an opposition because the opposition party didn't vote it in. But the opposition party's stance is not to say we want to deny Tobago autonomy. So what is it that he wants? What is it that he wants and did not get? Because it seems like he wants his cake. He wants to have his cake and eat it too. He's complaining through both sides on this specific part of the issue. And then I understand about the timing. I understand about the fact that the bills, because they complained about it. These things came down the pipe from 2021. They weren't what they wanted. That's what he said. But now that they weren't passed, these bills weren't what, according to the opposition party in Parliament and the executive of the THA, these bills were not what the people of Tobago wanted. And yet when they weren't passed, somehow the Chief Secretary thought, this is a sign that the Prime Minister, he used the term, well, he's a house slave. And he forgot the rest of us still in the field. I would just like to point out that in a country that makes a lot of noise about shedding the yoke of colonialism, why is it that some of the quote-unquote victims of colonialism always want to go back there to disparage people of their own ancestry? Why is it? This is what one Afro Trinbagonian / Tobagonian says about another Afro-Trinbagonian / Tobagonian, because they're both from Tobago. You want us to get rid of the yokes of colonialism? Well, things like this, I would argue, need to stop. I would argue bigotry, one of the ways that it has to stop is by stop talking about bigotry. Stop giving it any credence whatsoever, but we're far from that. And I am left kind of shocked as to how did we reach to this point over this issue that technically anyone with half a brain should not be surprised at how it unfolded until we got to all of the over-dramatic emotional talk from the politicians over the outcome, starting from the Prime Minister's statements being shocked over MP Saddam Hussein, which, to be fair to him, is like one of the most benign things I've heard over this, to the overly dramatic stuff from the PNM Tobago Council leader and minority leader of the THA. I still like Mr. Morris, but, you know, they didn't necessarily have to go there. To what the Chief Secretary said. I think at the end of the day, we need to understand that no matter how much we think another politician acts in such a hateful manner, why are you compounding the issue? Utilizing certain words. Oh, yes, I understand. You're frustrated and you want to say something shocking for dramatic effect. And you know, I hesitate to even say to be fair, because I really don't agree with it on any level. But it's not as though it was just something that he threw out there. He did throw it out irresponsibly, but there is an analogy. There's a point he's trying to make. He just went too far with it. This is a bill that you didn't like. It didn't do what you wanted to be done. But you're so outraged that it's not passing. I don't understand. Think about it. Kelvin Morris is outraged it didn't pass. Ansel Dennis is outraged it didn't pass. And their political opponent, the Chief Secretary, Farley Augustine, is outraged that it didn't pass. And everybody's pointing the fingers at everybody else. So exactly what's going on when, again, there's no opposition on the issue? There is no one taking a principled stance on the issue. And the real story is, and I think it goes back to what Martin George said, the only stakeholder who I saw that basically said, I am not surprised. I am not surprised. Because this is a game. This is a game where, oh my gosh, how could he do that? I am shocked. And that is the most polite, least egregious thing said. Because I get it. The Prime Minister at that point is filling a role. You know, I just wish he figured out something smarter to say. But to call the man a house slave, to me, that goes from attacking the man's policy decisions and actions and behavior in office to attacking the man personally. And it's not an example that I wish was set. So I will agree with the Tobago PNM on this. I think this situation will be a stain on the autonomy bill debate. It will be a sad day, but not because of the fact that the bill did not pass, but because of the fact that it seems as though all of the politicians are making it into a game, and in too many cases, it's all about shock value to rile up the base. That's what makes it sad. And I really, honestly don't know if there's even one politician that is actually acting in good faith on this issue. So I can't even speak about the merits of autonomy or not, because we haven't even gotten there yet about what it is and what it should be. Because right now, it's like many things. It's not actually an issue to be settled. It's an issue to divide. It's an issue to win political brownie points. It's an issue to gain supporters. And usually when issues are treated this way, they will never be solved. Because when you solve the issue, then you will lose the supporters. And politicians are not in the business of losing supporters. They are only in the business of gaining supporters so that they could win elections. So why solve this one? Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
Here's your chance to win a bicycle, a ride-on, or a hoverboard. Shop at dbesttoys.com and spend $300 or more to win big.
We've got Barbie,
Hot Wheels, Gel Blasters, Ride-ons,
Leapfrog,
Nerf, bicycles and tricycles,
Greco, and Wonder Baby.
Visit us in store at Forces Flagship, McBean, Movietown, Port of Spain,
Eastgate Mall, and M6 Plaza Endeavour.
Merry Christmas, everyone!
Welcome back to Talking About Sean Michael Small. I don't know if there's any issue more confusing than Tobago autonomy. And it just shows the failure, I think, in leadership, communication. And this is why one of the things is, I think it's true in the sense of probably this and the next policy proposal or legislative proposals for Tobago autonomy probably won't be anything close to giving the effect of what Tobagonians want, or at least think they want. You could go with either way, right? Or need. You can go with any of those three. Because at this point, ironically, even though Faith B. Israel said, Dr. Faith B. Israel said that there have already been too much consultations for too long, I do wonder if the ship has sailed, the shark has jumped, and the issue has been lost sight of. And I don't know what's more frustrating, the murder rate, the lack of civic responsibility by most citizens, or the fact that the politics have gotten so convoluted that now we have an issue where people can complain about the same thing and blame each other. And no one actually opposes the thing, but it ain't going to pass in Parliament. Because we lack the ability to actually create a consensus and find a way forward. And perhaps this is an example of one of the things, one of the root issues that plagues TNT. And it's not unique to us because you see this happening in Europe. That's why, look at the UK. They have to change prime minister like every, couple of years now, it seems. It's almost like prime minister in UK is like a new car in Japan. You have to change it within 5 years. Well, maybe before 5 years in some cases. Seems like they change the new cars all the time. That's why we have so much foreign used cars on our market. I don't... is this really how our legislature is just going to act on everything? And then to that point, think about it. How are we going to get constitutional reform? Someone please tell me. Are these the jokers that we're going to say, hey, you know, we have a lot of problems that we need to fix, and we need constitutional reform to fix it. You know, and there are a lot of improvements that can be made, updates to core parts of our legislation, to our constitution itself, that generally speaking, I think most people, at least most people who are aware of the issues, would be for. And we want you to do it. But you can't sort out the details of anything and come to the consensus of the details of anything for the good of anybody. The irony is, when the question about the timing of the debate comes up, the irony is perhaps if this was not done around the time of a general election, it might have been easier to get more people acting in good faith rather than what I think is bad faith actors across the board yesterday. Because then without the whole consideration of who's going to win the 2 seats in Tobago, and that might be the balance point of the upcoming general election, then we might take some of the politics outside of Tobago economy. But unfortunately, that's one of the downfalls of having such a issue during such a time where the political contest is going to be heated. So again, what is constitutional reform, that debate going to look like? Because if for Tobago autonomy, we're going to get a situation where everybody agrees, but no one will agree on the details or the implementation, will we be... Usually in Europe, you need to have like 5 parties to get to a point like this, right? Because you can't get a consensus because there are too many voices. Our parliament essentially has 2 voices. The government side and the opposition side. That's it. Nobody went on their own. We didn't even get anyone abstaining. There are dissidents in the opposition party. They didn't abstain. They voted, well, yeah, I believe they voted against 2 weren't there. I mean, if this is what it's going to be like with just 2 viewpoints in Parliament, it doesn't it doesn't generate a lot of hope for the future, no pun intended. I do think that there are a lot of things that needs to be fixed. One, with constitutional reform. I just have very little hope, no pun intended, that it can happen. And what does that mean now with regards to how does that reflect on our society? Of us as a people. Why is it that somehow we have limited ourselves? There's just certain things that we are not willing or able to do or get done as a collective. And maybe it goes back to an ongoing point that I make with regards to a lack of patriotism and national identity, civic responsibility, and national service. Because we're too caught up in our own needs, wants, and ambitions that the good of the nation, even political outsiders, get caught up in the politics once they enter the Red House. It's sad and to some extent disgusting. Let's move on to the second story. This one, it's an interesting setup with everything that's happened. Now, one of the things that I'm not necessarily going to speak about a lot until I know more, and even then, it's hard to necessarily know for certain. There's an EBC report. This is also something was coming down the pipe, and it's not surprising. It wants to change certain things with regards to the boundaries, etc., etc. It has to, on the basis of populations move and new communities spring forth, and some might reduce, so it has to, right? Based on the laws of how we draw these boundary lines. Of course, the opposition is saying, well, government is going to do this to their advantage. Except that's what was said over the THA election. And they lost that technically 14-1. They lost that for almost 15-0. They almost 15-0 in a situation where people were concerned before the election that the new lines were to favor the PNM. Maybe they were, it just didn't work. And it proves to some extent why do we underestimate ourselves, because take away the electoral officials in Tobago, the people of Tobago as an electorate kind of showed up Trinidad that day because they were decisive with what they wanted. And it showed what could be if we are not just complacent. Now, with that backdrop, the Prime Minister said he's requested election observers from CARICOM. This came up with regards to debating the 2024 EBC report. And the thing is, a lot of people always say we need to have international observers for elections because they don't trust it. To some extent, I'm not. Ironically, after all of the cynical things that I just said, I don't know to what extent is this necessary. Is the EBC corrupted? The thing is, thankfully, I don't think there's anything I could point to say that's a smoking gun. The way how there are issues with other independent institutions that I could point to say that's a smoking gun. Now, with regards to the DPP, the Auditor General, the Procurement Regulator, the Ombudsman, and the EBC, I think personally, I think they have all stayed within their independent lane. And they have not necessarily been politicized like other supposed independent office holders and officers. At least, I hope. How effective will CARICOM election observers be? I don't know. The irony is this might be one instance where things are working reasonably well. The people in the EBC might be taking their job seriously enough and fulfilling their duties well enough. And yet, the voters are just not willing to accept results that goes against them. And it's almost like we lost sight of what an election is. Because I think the rhetoric from the THA situation got so bad because politics in 2024, not just here around the world, is basically for my side to win, your side has to lose. But we lose sight of the fact that we are not the republics of PNM and UNC. We are the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. 2 islands, 1 nation. Whatever political party exists could come and go, but they're not as important as that. Now, hopefully the observers will lend some credence, but the irony is this was revealed during the debate with regards to the EBC and the proposed changes. I don't necessarily know how much CARICOM observers could really do anything to kind of guarantee that nothing funny goes on there because the changes are happening before. They will just observe within the structure of the new boundaries of voting constituencies that no funny business occurred based on what they could see. Now, there are certain places in America where they've had to take these sorts of things more and more seriously. The security of the voting process, the chain of custody of ballots, the security for the count. And I don't know if more stringent measures could be applied to our own elections. The irony, of course, is I don't even know if it's necessary because I'll always go back to something that Keaton has speculated on for at least 2 years now. Does either side really want to win the next general election? Seems as though they do, but then to what end? Neither side is really campaigning on what it is they propose to do to help us. They're just kind of fighting each other. CARICOM observers might just be a smokescreen. But it might be a smokescreen that's necessary, ironically, if people just don't trust the whole thing. But here's the wider issue. If you think that there's funny business even with regards to our electoral process, why do you think that, assuming you are not a supporter of the incumbent administration, I'll just vote in my people and everything will magically be better? It's almost like if we really don't understand what it would take to clean up the country if it is as bad as we say it is. And in some cases, I agree. And in some cases, I'm not too sure. But you know what? If we were actually serious with regards to what we said, why don't we have actions to follow it up? I mean, I did say, with this current crop of politicians, I have no hope for constitutional reform. Constitutional reform also might be necessary with regards to, or at least public service reform, or public sector reform, I think is also necessary. Can this group of parliamentarians do it? And do it well? And do it to not make a mess? That's the hidden thing with regards to the Tobago autonomy bills. Could a Tobagonian stakeholder analyze the bill and say whether or not it might have made the whole situation a mess? I think the opposition is saying this would have just been a mess for no practical gain. If this whole situation with the EBC is as important as we say it is, then the voting population should be demanding real change. Real change. Not the, well, I don't like this side, so I'll vote back in that side that I voted out the last time, but I need to vote out these people now. Because all they do is they play tennis with power. PNM and UNC, back and forth. Okay, maybe one side gets 2 terms. You know, Kamala Persad has got 1 term, Rowley got 2 terms. Maybe Kamala gets a 2nd term now. Maybe she gets 2 terms in a row now before it's served back to the PNM. But that's just how it goes, back and forth. Notice how in the equation where the 2 parties essentially share power, because they're either going to be the majority government or the minority opposition, they're still going to get a check, they're still going to get a pension. They don't have to worry about their livelihoods. This is their livelihood. Their livelihood is to be the ruling class. And as long as nothing disrupts that, what is the incentive for them to change their behavior? People doesn't like when you lump the 2 parties in together. Listen, I didn't make the dynamics of the political equation how they are today. But this is how I observe it to be. It takes 2 to tango. And right now, they're tangoing all over our future. Think about the prospects or lack thereof of a nation that should have, at the very least, I believe our foreign exchange reserve was 10 billion at one point. I don't know how much of that was the HSF, but the HSF should not be as low as it is. COVID, even with COVID. I get it. A lot of people appreciate the GATE program. But on a national level, on an individual level, it's a success. It's a success. On an individual level, and to some degree a social level, it's a success. To an economic and development level, it's a failure. Because it has not really contributed to the development of the wider society in the long run. Something could be a positive initiative and fail. Part of it is we have to be willing to accept that. It was failed because of poor implementation. Poor implementation because they don't have an incentive to do better. So a part of me just kind of chuckles at this whole, EBC report, and if things are that bad, where is the agency for change? Because enough people think that the 2 parties are different sides of the same coin, right? So voting in the other party, how does that fix anything? And when a 3rd party comes around, what do? We kind of look at them condescendingly, laugh, and say, oh, how cute. Go home, little child. Don't come and play here with the adults. The same adults that we complain about and we dislike and we wish would go away. And we lambast all the time, but go home, little child. We don't want you. Whatever little child 3rd party it is. Oh, what? COP? They went through puberty? And they ended up turning out just like their parents. At least back then. It's Christmas time, though. One of the things that I wondered about in this news cycle is because the SRC report story, to some extent, only now kind of started to peter out, right? It'll be interesting to see if the unions kind of let go of this prime opportunity to dominate the news cycle, because they don't know what to do to follow up and keep the story relevant without being redundant, I would imagine. Because usually what happens is some bigger controversy comes in and replaces it. And in this case, maybe you could say the autonomy debate was a bigger controversy. I don't know to what extent it is a controversy outside of the commentary from politicians over it, because again, who was surprised at the outcome? Not I. But perhaps it's Christmas time. We don't need a controversy to kind of, distract us from bad news. We have Christmas. Who's really going to look about the bad news? We don't want to reflect and harp and stress about the bad news. No. My life is too important to do anything about the country crumbling around me. And then Carnival is generally from Boxing Day. I mean, they probably had attempts to have Carnival Festival now. I'm not aware of it. I'm so out of the loop with regards to that. So we'll be probably distracted until Easter. And then at Easter time, everybody will kind of search into themselves and reflect on themselves, and that's fine. And maybe some people will think, hey, now might be the time to take life a little bit more seriously. But I'll be honest, the election could be called for August. If we started to take life seriously by Easter time, which is what? May? We'll just be rushing through things and not get anything meaningful done. Because our population with regards to politics is like an irresponsible student with regards to their studies. We want to cram last minute. Except the foundation when you cram is poor. So unless you're some incredibly brilliant person, it's not going to work. And there's no such thing as an incredibly brilliant society. The act of trying to get consensus from about 900,000 people is too hard, no matter how smart some or all of them are. And again, that's one of the things, that's one of the indicators to me why Gates was a failure. We educated the population, and yet somehow we're not that smarter. Maybe it would have been better to use that money to invest in infrastructure, to allow for more small, medium, and even micro entrepreneurs to spring up, to provide more jobs, to increase the number of jobs available, the number of potential career paths available. As the economy grows, there's a greater demand for more goods and services and a more variety of goods and services, presenting further diverse opportunities to a population who will then find itself being more able to support its own population, whether they have college degrees or not, to find a job, earn a living, live life, and not have to worry about affording food on the table. Or we could just, do things that's popular. Not worry about the consequences if they're not implemented well and utilized properly to benefit society. And the people will praise us for it. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll open the phone line. Stay tuned.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. coming from an expert.
Here's your chance to win a bicycle, a ride-on, or a hoverboard. Shop at dbesttoys.com and spend $300 or more to win big.
We've got Bobby,
Hot Wheels, Gel Blasters, Ride-Ons,
Leapfrog,
Nerf, Bicycles and Tricycles.
Greco, and Wonder Baby.
Visit us in store at Forces flagship McBean, Movisham Port of Spain,
Eastgate Smart and M6 Plaza Endeavour.
Merry Christmas, everyone!
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus, quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
My name is Dr. Stephen Carroll, the CEO at Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist, and we are committed to making good private health care affordable.
For all your medical needs, including dental, radiology, laparoscopy, behavioral and mental health, along with many other services, contact us for more information at 235-5479.
Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Welcome back to the Talking Point. I'm just besides myself feeling a little bit hypocritical because despite all I said for the last hour, one of the things that's at the forefront of my mind is the stress with regards to trying to figure out what to buy relatives for Christmas. It's not going to change the price of bread, folks, but at the end of the day, like, I have to admit, people are going to want to give some attention to the personal requirements of the season, right? Ironically, not for yourself, because it's for other people. Otherwise, I'll just be happy to continue on my days as normal. It's Christmas. Christmas is for the kids. Otherwise, it's really a lot for retailers, I guess. And maybe they need it. I don't know. To what extent does a season like Christmas skew an economy and industries so far to this one concentrated point that it leaves things in an unhealthy equation? I don't know. I don't think it started off like this, but you know, you give people an inch, they take a mile. Anyway, now is the time, as usual, that we open up the phone lines to hear from you, the viewer. A little bit late today, I understand. The main story, of course, there were some other minor stories in it, but the Christmas season is kind of taking things slow. Again, it makes it interesting why the government was willing to put such a contentious legislative proposal on the cards now, ironically. It's almost like if they did not necessarily weigh the risks, or maybe they felt they were going to successfully throw the blame on others, that it might not fall back on them. Again, I'm not saying that they're the only ones to blame. I'm not saying the other sides are the only ones to blame. I'm just trying to figure out exactly who is not to blame, because I can't really figure that out, because it seems to me that nobody really wants autonomy. They just say they want it. So you could call in and have your say on this or any other topic. The numbers should be up on your screen. I'll be honest. This is one of those times again where I kind of wonder. I kind of wonder to what extent are we at a point of no return? Not that we can't, just that we won't. We don't want to turn things around. I think a lot of people might look at this Tobago autonomy issue and say, that's an issue for Tobagonians. I'm Trinidadian, I shouldn't have an opinion. Well, a lot of what I said today was not about what autonomy is. What autonomy is, to some extent, is, very important to Tobagonians. But what happened in Parliament and how this issue is being treated, I think, is of national importance. We have Stan on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, morning, Sean.
Morning.
Okay, that Tobago, let me start with the Tobago Autonomy Bill. Or the Tobago Autonomy Bill's failure to get passed. I looked at the PNM Tobago representatives in the last few weeks in Tobago they were going around the community having these discussions with the community. And what I saw as feedback from those communities led me to believe that there is no serious interest in the population of Tobago in large measure. Let me put a caveat there. In large measure for this autonomy bill. And because, in part, in my opinion, there's a lot of confusion in Tobago with respect to wanting what they want. The THA saying one thing, Zoya Fatanga saying something else, you're hearing the other commentator saying something else. So we end up where we end up because there is no cohesion. I would have thought that if the THA really wanted this bill passed, in whatever form it is, that they would have pressed all of the parliamentarians, because the PNM has already said despite whatever you say, they're going to support the bill. So then what you needed was the opposition to support the bill. And there was not enough, in my opinion, there was not enough push by them, the THA, to get the opposition to support. Public pressure. And probably it is because what you said, they probably didn't want the bill in the first place. Probably is that. Now, that being said, I want to hit on something here about what you talk about, the change in the country in terms of. I'm going to call out this morning. I hope you understand where I'm coming from. I'm going to call out you and your age group. Put it that way.
Yeah.
What are you all?
Yeah.
Are the ones? If you look at your program, Sean, who are the ones when you look at Diego Martin, Tabadi, Maraval, Faizabad, all the callers. Let's stop it. That's snippets. All the callers. If you gauge them, you could understand the age group of, let me say, us. And we are not seeing you all. It's all the country, We're on the way out, And I find you all, that age group, and what's her name, had said it on some time ago.
Janelle?
Janelle John Bates.
Mm-hmm.
Had said it, that she's not seeing the interest in her peers in terms of it getting involved in the process. And probably that is where we need to go to try and change the trajectory of where the country is going. That's my contribution this morning, Sean. Have a good day, boy.
Thank you, caller. I agree with you, 100%. It started off with an old teacher of mine, Ray Holman. I was in Tobago. I was picking up my dinner. I was not dressed to sit in the restaurant. Fortunately, the restaurant was empty. He is having dinner with the person that he came to Tobago with, I assume, or with someone that he met in Tobago. He wants me to sit down and talk to him while he's having dinner, and I am not, and I am in casual wear, just to say the least. Too ultra too casual. So I am there as a third wheel. I feel bad. Of course, the person he's with seems more than happy and understanding. And he had a conversation with me where he's basically lamented the fact that he's not seeing the good young men, and by extension, the good young women. But I think to him, it's the good young men because that's who he taught. He taught in a boys' school. So he's probably looking at the students he taught and the students coming from his institution that have the potential. He can't speak to other schools, and of course he can't necessarily speak directly about girls' schools, but he knows about students from one school. And maybe also the young men he sees in the pan and the art community. And the women there. But he knows about one school. And he laments the fact that he doesn't see the good young men do anything to not step up and bear the responsibility. And it hit me then. And I actually tried to pass that message on to some of my peers, but I don't know, it's the wider societal issues very much are expressed in the lack of interest by my generation, and even maybe a generation underneath me, depending on how you look at it, right? People in their 20s, people in the early 30s, people in the early 40s. It seems to be expressed across the board in about a 2-decade age range. Granted, there are some signs. It all depends on what you think about Kareem Marcel. There's a couple others who may be youth parliamentarians in the press saying that they see the call, but I wonder if it's too little. Not necessarily too late, but maybe too little. We have Shagonas in line. I'll continue this further. Shagonas, good morning. You're all there.
Good day, Sean.
Good day, good day.
I cannot understand what the furor is about the EBC. When I read the law on that, it gives you details as to when you could change boundaries, when you could create new electoral districts and things like that. If it have not been followed, why the people who is criticizing it don't say which part of the law was not complied with? Right? Second, in regards to Tobago, you asked the pertinent question. What is autonomy? Of course, I didn't hear any answer. As far as I'm concerned, autonomy is given in the local government context to somebody who can finance the basic function. That is why it started off in Port of Spain, when San Fernando, Arima, and so forth. Tobago could not provide basic amenities by itself. And that is why they were united with Trinidad. They was not absorbed into Trinidad, like some people who want to mislead the population say that Tobago was made a ward of Trinidad. Tobago was not made a ward of Trinidad. Tobago was made part of the dual island of Trinidad and Tobago, and the local government situation in Trinidad at the time had counties, wards, parishes, and so forth. Even Tobago had parishes. And the only thing Tobago could have qualified at that time, at the highest level, was a ward, both from the size of the population and the size of the area. And as far as I'm concerned, up to now, they still, in fact, they get worse. Right? They said Trinidad do them this and but nobody have said, but number one, Trinidad can't do anybody anything. Trinidad is not a legislative body. It's the government of Trinidad and Tobago who will do these things. And that is why when you give local government, the highest was the cities who before Martin and them interfere with it. They used to charge 10%, and the boroughs 8%, and the other people, the old figure of 7.5%. Any questions, sir?
No caller. I think we're more or less in alignment here. Okay. With regards to the status of Tobago. That's the thing. I think you pointed it out. What?
Well, how you going to give autonomy to Tobago and not to Trinidad?
Well,
it don't make no sense to me.
That's an interesting point, caller. Thank you.
Okay, boy.
That's an interesting point because, like you said, it's not the government of Trinidad. Now, I lament the fact that I think Parliament needs more Tobago representation, but then how do you do that fairly, right? You can't add more MPs for the sake of it. That doesn't kind of make sense for the whole system of MPs. Now, you can add more senators, but then how many more? Like how do you formally say, like, is it that there's supposed to be one government senator that's from Tobago, or one opposition senator from Tobago? But what if those parties don't have support in Tobago? Right now, one could argue there's maybe not little, but there's significantly less support for the PNM in Tobago than it was in the past, and there seems to be almost no support for the UNC in Tobago. So how do you determine, because you can't have more Tobago senators. So should there be one or two independent senators who should always be from Tobago, so that Tobago's gets a voice in Parliament? I mean, because party politics basically means the MPs of Tobago fall in line with the party policy positions and not the needs of Tobago. But of course we know this, and this is the thing. You see, what happens in Tobago, it's almost like if it highlights the issues more, because being a separate island, things are different, the circumstances are different, the potential effects sometimes are more severe. But then one could argue, look, Digger Martin West saying, our parliamentarian don't show up for us. So it's not about geographical distance. It's maybe about the MPs being cabinet ministers, having multiple responsibilities. So they shirk one of their main foundational ones, being the representative for constituency. So that's the thing. When I say that, hey, the Tobago MPs are not really representing Tobago. They're more just an arm of the party and whatever the party's view is. And then, of course, the assumption is, well, that's a Trinidadian view. Is it? It's not like Trinidad is just so much more prosperous. You know, in Tobago, it's a whole set of second-class citizens. There are circumstances that makes life in Tobago more complicated because there's no land bridge, there's only an air and sea bridge. But here's the thing, it's easy for Tobagonians to blame Trinidadians. Again, it's not a government of Trinidad, and there is no Trinidad autonomy. It's easy to blame Trinidadians, but it's not as though the problems in Tobago are not also experienced on some level by other parts of the country, aka some parts of Trinidad. Tobagonians, it's easy to blame Trinidadians. Well, rural people will blame town people. Working class town people will blame rich people. How many people say, hey, people live in the west, people live up north, south people will blame north people, east people will blame west people. San Fernando people will feel they're being looked down by Port of Spain people. People in Port of Spain will feel they're being looked down by people in St. Clair and Westmoreland. Where does it end? Where does it stop? The thing is, one of the things I didn't make clear about this whole autonomy bill issue that happened yesterday, think about it this way. Think about it this way. The Chief Secretary blamed the PNM for the bill not passing when the PNM voted for the bill. Think about that. Think about how the issue has totally jumped the shark. The Chief Secretary called the Prime Minister house slave for failure to pass a bill that his side voted for. The opposition didn't vote for it. He doesn't say anything about the opposition. Oh, no. Nothing wrong to say there. They had no hand in it at all. I'm not saying the PNM did everything in good faith and did everything above board. You don't have to make that assumption or believe that. To just think about the fact that why does it seem as though this whole thing doesn't make sense when I'm going to complain about your legislature. It's not good enough. But when you don't pass it, even though you voted for it, I'm going to blame you for not passing a bill you voted for. I don't know what it means. I don't know if there's some TPP, UNC alliance brewing. I don't know if it's bad faith politics. I don't know if it's just the chief secretary being caught up in his emotions and being silly in the moment. It just doesn't make sense. Someone, please explain it to me. The thing about the EBC is people don't trust the election results, so they look for something to blame. It's the reason why, politically, it's easy to just blame Trinidad, as though the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago is AKA Trinidad, as though Keith Rowley was born and raised and has a pro-Trinidadian agenda. Don't mind his friend Alan Warner is doing illegal quarrying, allegedly, in Trinidad. So, just like how it's easy for Tobago to blame their problems on Trinidad, whereas in reality what they should be blaming their problems on is the inadequacies of our political processes and environments, which is hampering most of the country. I'm sure, places like Mayaro and Moruga will be like, what about us? We would like anything, something, we would like lip service about lip service with regards to our needs. Some of these areas, some of the areas in Trinidad don't have basic things like running water and roads. And I'm not talking about a small community. I'm talking about a big area. Running water and roads. I think most of Tobago has running water and roads. So who is in need of what? Where should priorities be given? And why is it that all too often, and this is what I said, for my side to win, they have to lose. But aren't we all from the same country and we draw from the same pool of resources? So it's easy to look like it's a zero-sum game. But think about it this way. Imagine if you're in a family and you have 3 to 4 siblings, and essentially your mindset as one of the children is, for me to win, I have to take from my siblings. I don't care if they're destitute and if they get nothing. I only care about what I get. And that's what it seems like everybody's doing. So the EBC, it's simple. You blame the EBC, whether rightfully or wrongfully, because to the population, there's always going to be a section that never likes the results, and now, whether by watching what goes on in foreign jurisdictions or just because of basic human nature. I don't like the results, I have to blame somebody. It can't be my fault. It can't be the failures of the people who I support. There are a lot of people who don't want to blame Kamala Harris for her loss. Somehow the host of a certain daytime show in America, I believe on ABC, basically wants to say the guy that won the popular vote because I guess the majority of voters are bigots. The majority of voters are bigots. As though somehow she represents the last bastion of sanity and humanity. Or they might just be people with different priorities to you. And we should not lose sight of that. There are a lot of similarities with our politics and theirs. In the sense of maybe UNC and PNM diehards should look at the supporters of the other side. And yes, if you go on social media, you will see similar language to what the Chief Secretary used and worse. But a lot of the supporters, first of all, the diehards might be the ones that showed up, the 10,000 or the 17,000 for the internal elections. But when it comes time for national elections, there are more voters than 30,000 voters, right? About, say on average, 30 to 40,000. If you go, say, 20,000, let's just estimate, round up, for both sides' internal elections, right? Or potential voter count. I'm just guesstimating here. Well, there are more voters than that at the national level. So most of the voters aren't diehard, that they're part of the party process and they're waving the flags and all of that jazz. Most of the voters probably aren't that. And those people, at the very least, they're not there because their side needs to win. They're there because in a landscape where information and communication are horrible and leadership is horrible, they'll just place their bets on the side they're the most comfortable with and hope for a better future. That's all they could do, no pun intended. Notice how everything is about blame. Blame, 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 blame. Not what did I not do? How I could be better. How my supporters should try to be better. So how we collectively could do better. Show everyone else potentially how to do better. Invite them to join with us to do better. And maybe then lead the country to be better. Don't hear none of that. What could I do better? That's a question. That's a question that haunts me. Should I do better in TV production? In producing the show? In the content delivery? In the issues that I select? In the opinions that I give? Or should I seek out a bigger, more impactful platform? Would that be even possible? A lot of what I say is both simple and complicated at the same time. And it's not easy to work out all the details on complex issues like this. It's easy to boil it down to simple, important points, but that doesn't allow for implementation. It allows for a direction and maybe even a focus, but not for implementation, which requires a lot of details for issues like this. And at the end of the day, when we as individuals approach it, we're kind of in that same sort of have to do that calculation. We need to find a direction, and at times we need to try to cut through all of the noise to simplify it in order to determine our direction. What's the principle that we want to stand on? What's the most important thing that we want to fight for? But then the details of how to implement that are going to be complex. There's no way around that. And I think at the end of the day, the inability to cut through the noise, to simplify the overall principles, to find the direction, whichever one it is, because you don't have to champion every issue, but we just need more people championing an issue responsibly. That's hard enough to do. But then now, the implementation part of it, it's such a tall order. And here's the thing. The reason why the night is always darkest before the dawn is, things are going to keep looking worse. And it's going to get harder and harder and harder and harder. And unfortunately, it's going to be to a point in time when the consequences are undeniable. Then someone is going to try to do something about it. But at that point in time, it will technically be an insurmountable problem, except hopefully people will finally see that the problem is undeniable. Therefore, we can't ignore it. We can't push it to the side. We have to do something about it. And in some ways, it actually does make it relatively easy with regards to getting people on board, despite the fact that the technical side of it is the hardest it will ever be because it has descended into what it is. And I think that's where we're going. I don't know how to get my generation more on board. Maybe I need to do more advocacy there. Maybe that's where I need to do better, as per Mr. San Fernando's point. Maybe that's where I should start off, to simplify everything. And now I have to figure out how to implement that. And to be honest, I have no idea, given the time frame of this one show, because we are out of time, so I'll have to leave it there. Thanks to the two callers. Thanks to Mr. San Fernando for that point. That's an interesting point to raise. And we'll have to see where it goes. And maybe who might step up now when the need becomes undeniable. Will more people of my generation step up? I don't know. I hope so. Remember your allegiance to the Republic and to each other. And make today a good day for as many people as you meet today. Stay safe. It's nice to be nice, even to people you don't like. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Bring the magic of Christmas home with WESN's Joy of Christmas. Relive timeless classics from the laughter to the heartwarming moments that make the season unforgettable.
Hey, like the lamp, not the rat, like the lamp, not the rat!
Santa's coming to town!
Ah! Oh my God!
Oh, baby.
Experience the joy of WESN special productions, crafted to bring you new stories and cherished memories. This year, let WESN bring the joy of Christmas to your home.
Merry Christmas, Charlie Brown!
Catch the spirit, catch the joy.
Anchors away. May the force be with you.
Only on WESN, your content capital.
Here's your chance to win a bicycle, a ride-on, or a hoverboard. Shop at dbesttoys.com and spend $300 or more to win big.
We've got Bobby,
Hot Wheels, Gel Blasters, Ride-Ons,
Leapfrog,
Nerf, Bicycles and Tricycles.
Greco, and Wonder Baby.
Visit us in store at Forces flagship McBean, Movietown, Port of Spain,
Eastgate Smart and M6 Plaza Endeavour.
Merry Christmas, everyone!
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.